Well, I'm delighted that today we have reached a historic solution that I believe is pragmatic and gives the people of Gibraltar the certainty they need for their sovereignty and their prosperity over the years ahead. This is a good arrangement that deals with the complexity of the current arrangements that mean that people have sometimes queued for hours and has harmed the certainty that business needs. And it deals with the issues that arose as a result of the United Kingdom leaving the European Union. It builds on the successful summit that the UK had with the EU just a few weeks ago. And now we have a forward momentum that ensures the sovereignty and the prosperity of the people of Gibraltar. That builds on the relationship that my government, this new government, has set with the European Union. And also brings about a new era for relations between the United Kingdom and Spain. This is a very, very good day.
Thank you, Foreign Secretary. I think today is hugely important. We haven't yet got the legal text of the treaty. That is to come. But we have reached the agreement we needed to reach. And that agreement was necessary for the people of Gibraltar, for the people who live around Gibraltar. But it was also something that we wanted to see because Gibraltar didn't want to leave the European Union in 2016. We are part of the continent of Europe. We need to have the fluidity of goods and people with the continent of Europe. And the work that I've done with successive foreign secretaries and in the last 13 months with David has enabled us to have an arrangement for a future relationship with the European Union, which preserves the equities that the people of Gibraltar have in the relationship with the rest of the continent of Europe. But in particular, what it does is it opens up a huge opportunity for the future of Gibraltar and the whole region, and to look forward to a positive relationship with Spain that is no longer constantly going to be referred to in the context of the sovereignty issue. In this negotiation, sovereignty has not been on the table, not just because we would not allow it to be, but because Spain has not wished to even try to put it on the table. The attitude of our colleagues, our negotiating counterparts in the European Union and from Spain has been to want to reach pragmatic solutions dealing with the matters that really affect the day-to-day lives of people on both sides of the frontier, and to turn the whole region into a more dynamic opportunity for all. That's what this will do. I'm very proud of the work that we have achieved today and what it means for the future.
Foreign Secretary, Brian Reyes from the Gibraltar Chronicle. Could you give us some detail on how the immigration arrangements are going to work? There's no reference to Frontex in the statement. Is that off the table now? In practice, how is it going to work, and where will those Spanish officers who will guarantee the integrity of the Schengen area be located? How will it work in practice?
Well, we've worked hard on this issue, and of course it was a complex issue for us to deal with. But the arrangements that I think we have been able to put in place mirror and parallel the sorts of arrangements that you see at St Pancras in London, where you do have French customs officers working alongside and in a second line to UK officers. So that will be the new arrangement in the airport. And what that means effectively is that the complexity, the length and time that it has taken for Spanish workers moving into Gibraltar, and indeed the many people leaving Gibraltar and going into Spain, that is all reduced, that the arrangements for goods are dealt with, and there can be a parallel system and a second line that allows for that Schengen process alongside, of course, the importance of Gibraltar's own customs, immigration and police personnel, as you would expect.
Those arrangements were put in place in the New Year's Eve Framework Agreement of 2020. The work we've had to do in respect of them has been very technical, but the geography of how that will work has not changed at all in the context of the period of the negotiation. It has really been, as the Foreign Secretary rightly says, the detail of how Schengen Information System is going to work there, how the ETIAS system is going to work there, and how EES will work there for those arriving from third countries, and having to do all those bits of administrative work that they will do when they arrive at Gibraltar Airport. So exactly the same as we announced in 2020, which was a tough negotiation with our Spanish counterparts then, and which we have been able to now elevate to an agreement between the United Kingdom and the European Union to deliver that New Year's Eve framework agreement into the treaty that will come, the agreement that will come with the EU.
Except the message was always no boots on the ground.
Yes, that is a shorthand message which was as valid then as it is now.
Jonathan Scott for GBC News. Foreign Secretary and Chief Minister, can you give us some details of the customs arrangements that have been entered into, and is there a level playing field for businesses on both sides of the Gibraltar-Spain border?
Well, it was very important to spend time with businesses in Gibraltar this morning. And what they wanted to get across to me was, please, can you come up with a solution that gives us certainty? Can you come up with a solution that avoids friction? Can you come up with a solution that is good for businesses in Gibraltar and indeed for businesses in Spain? A win-win for both of our communities. And I think that that is what we have been able to do, to get beyond the friction, to make this seamless. A lot of work has gone into this, and I'm very grateful that the sovereignty of Gibraltar, both direct and indirect, is achieved by the arrangements that we've struck. I'll let Fabian go into the detail.
Thank you. The arrangements are designed to give Gibraltarian businesses access to the single market of 580 million, of 480 million people, almost 500 million people, access which they haven't had before. Also to facilitate the ability of people to enter Gibraltar. We know that when we've had queues, and if we'd had the full application of the Schengen Border Code, it would have become very difficult for people to come into Gibraltar as tourists from Spain and the rest of continental Europe. So we wanted to assure the viability of Main Street and our retail sector, and we wanted to add something more, an extra string to the bow of businesses in Gibraltar. Now they have that opportunity to sell into the single market on the same terms as businesses in the single market sell in and through the single market, and I'm very much looking forward to explaining the detail of that to the business community in Gibraltar. You know that I recently sought their views on some of the detail as the negotiation had advanced. We had spoken to them in a committee we called TELAC at the beginning of the negotiation. As we got towards the end of the negotiation, we tested certain aspects of the deal with them as it was being proposed to us, and we came back to the table with that feedback, and I'm very happy to be able to tell you that I will be able to say to them that we've fulfilled the feedback that they gave us in terms of concern. We've fulfilled being able to negotiate around those parameters.
Sorry, Foreign Secretary, Chief Minister, I haven't heard detail or whether confirmation that there is a level playing field going both ways.
Yes, absolutely. That's the basis on which the single market works. So in answering your question in the positive, what we're saying is it's a level playing field in both directions in relation to the free movement, fluid movement of goods.
Philip Langerton of Reuters. From a non-Gibraltar perspective, and this has taken 5 years to do, why has it taken so long? And with all due respect to Gibraltar, it looks like, through those 5 years, it's muddled through. Why is it so important to have got this particular deal done?
Well, I mean, I would hardly say that we've muddled through in the sense that it's relatively successful GDP growth in those 5 years. But the hugely important aspect to this is not just the business aspect, it's the human aspect. The people of Gibraltar voted to stay in the European Union. We've got relationships across that frontier that go beyond business, that they go beyond finance. They're about having families on both sides of the frontier who would have been subjected to the Schengen border code every time they wanted to go and see a relative. We needed to ensure that we did not become a victim of Brexit. It's taken a lot of time because this treaty is going to be a doorstop. There's a lot of detail in it, and we need to ensure that we were producing something that was safe and secure for the people of Gibraltar. But when you look up from the text of this treaty, when you get it and when it comes, and you look just beyond that horizon, you'll see the future looking back at us telling us we did the right thing.
We picked this up from the last government. It was undone. And we picked a few things up from the last government that was not done. They hadn't done a trade deal with India. We got that across the line. Some said we couldn't do a trade deal with the United States. We achieved that a few weeks ago. And we did have a paper-thin agreement with the European Union. And we built on that with the successful summit and outcome just a few weeks ago. This was always unfinished business. I pay tribute to the work that Lord Cameron led when he was Foreign Secretary to get this deal done, and he kept me briefed in opposition on how it was developing. And I pay tribute also to the Minister for Europe, Stephen Doughty, who did a lot of sherpering of this over the last 10 or 9 months to get this arrangement through. And that's what we've achieved today, a historic arrangement that has the bones of an agreement that will achieve sovereignty and prosperity for the people of Gibraltar. And I'm very pleased that we've been able to succeed in that ambition within the first year of a Labour government.
Foreign Secretary, written by BBC News, you say it mirrors the deal that we have in St Pancras with French police doing border checks. But in the case of Gibraltar, British citizens will be travelling from a British territory to another British territory, and they still will have to show the passport to a third country authority. So it doesn't really mirror, does it? On this point, what do you respond to people saying that we're selling out to the Spaniards? And Chief Minister, you mentioned Frontex in previous, in the past, Frontex involvement for the first 4 years of a possible deal. Why is Frontex not involved now?
Well, shall
I'll go. As a consequence of the paper-thin deal that was done by Boris Johnson and the 2020 arrangement that was achieved by Dominic Raab, who was then Foreign Secretary, the people of Gibraltar are facing effectively a hard border. This is a border where 15,000 people are crossing every day. And that's why we had to roll our sleeves up and get this deal done. The arrangement that we have struck today actually builds on the deal that was done by Dominic Raab, then as Foreign Secretary, where there was a detailed look at the airport and how you could have Gibraltar, immigration, customs, police, and then a second line that would involve the Spanish customs and immigration officers. Of course, it's important to understand they're acting on behalf of the European Union. But as a result of leaving the European Union, there is a border. The question for us was, how do you make that border as frictionless as possible, as seamless as possible? And as you've heard, we were very clear that there would be no deal unless Gibraltar was happy. So there could be no deal without Gibraltar. And I think we've achieved that deal today.
So to answer your question to me, remember that when a British citizen arrives at Gibraltar Airport, they have to show their passport to Gibraltar Passport Control. Anyway, we are separate immigration jurisdictions to the United Kingdom. And a British citizen resident in the United Kingdom has to satisfy Gibraltar Borders and Coast Guard agents that they are authorised to enter Gibraltar anyway. At the moment, the vast majority of those arriving at Gibraltar Airport from the United Kingdom, the vast majority, I won't give you the percentage, but I think it's upwards of the 90%, use Gibraltar Airport to go to Spain. So they go past Gibraltar Passport Control, they leave the airport and they go straight to Spanish passport control to enter the Schengen area. What we're doing is we're bringing those two closer together. It will be done in an area of the airport which I described in 2020 when we did this part of the deal that you're talking about, which was not done today. This was done 5 years ago, this part of the deal, with Dominic Raab as Foreign Secretary. I described that we would do this in an area built in the northernmost corner of Gibraltar Airport, which would be equidistant in Gibraltar and Spain, which would enable us to have this facility, which would be a common operating facility for second line checks when necessary. And that's how we're going to be able to do it in a way that satisfies all of our concerns in respect of sovereignty and jurisdiction, and doesn't cause any issues for us in respect of being already separate immigration authorities.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.